Now go, and I will be with your mouth. Moses didn't feel ready, and that's one of the most honest parts of his story. Before freeing a people, Moses was a confused man, born with a calling, but grew up with a divided identity. Hebrew by blood, Egyptian by upbringing. A stranger within, he lived in the palace, but didn't feel like he belonged. He had privileges, but no peace. He had access, but no direction. And when he finally acted on impulse, everything broke. He killed an Egyptian, he fled. He lost his place, his status, his security. Moses didn't fail for lack of faith. He failed for lack of direction. And here is a truth few accept. Impulse without clarity often generates guilt, not purpose. The desert didn't come as punishment. It came as silence. 40 years tending sheep. 40 years out of the spotlight. 40 years where no one applauded, no one saw, no one called. For many, that would have been the end. For God, it was just the beginning. Because God doesn't work on the mission first. He works on the heart of the messenger. The desert reveals what noise hides. Masks fall there, fear is faced there. Obedience without applause is learned there. Moses thought his story was over. But God never confused delay with rejection. There are people today who believe they are behind, or that they wasted time, that they failed too much, that they are no longer useful. But the truth is different. God's call does not depend on your self-confidence. It depends on his purpose. When the bush burned, Moses didn't run. He hid, he doubted, he questioned. Who am I to go? I can't speak. He sent someone else. God didn't respond with motivation. He responded with direction. I will be with you. He didn't give him a complete map. He gave him presence. Because God doesn't usually reveal the entire path. He reveals the next step. And that's where everything begins. If today you have faith but feel lost, if you believe in God but don't know how to move forward, maybe you don't lack love for God, maybe you lack daily direction. The desert is not the end. It is the place where God redefines who you are before showing you where you are going. The desert doesn't just change the environment. It changes the way a person thinks. Moses went from palaces to dusty roads, from orders to silence, from being served to serving. Tending sheep was not a punishment. It was a re-education of the soul. In the desert, no one applauds you. No one validates your gifts. No one confirms your calling, and that is intentional. Because while the ego seeks recognition, God seeks obedience. Moses had to unlearn many things: haste, violence, the need for control, the idea that everything is solved with force. The man who had tried to liberate with impulsiveness now learned to wait. And here is something profoundly human. Waiting reveals what we truly believe. He who cannot endure the process deep down does not trust God. He only trusts in quick results. The desert confronts that. Day after day, Moses did the same. Walk, tend, protect, return. Nothing epic, nothing exciting, nothing spiritual in human eyes. But it is precisely there that God works most deeply, because character is not formed in extraordinary moments. It is formed in repetition. Psychologically, the human being is transformed by habits, not by emotional peaks. And spiritually, daily obedience weighs more than a grand intention. Moses was not wasting time. He was being emptied of pride, emptied of false identities, emptied of the idea that he had to be strong all the time. God cannot fill those who are still full of themselves. That's why many get frustrated. They want promises without process, results without transformation, destiny without discipline. But God doesn't work that way. The desert doesn't accelerate, it refines. And while Moses thought his story was over, God was writing a new version of him, a milder version, more conscious, more dependent. Because freeing a people does not only require leadership, it requires emotional stability, spiritual patience, inner direction. The desert teaches something few accept. Not all silence is abandonment. Sometimes it is God teaching you to listen. And when the heart learns to listen, direction begins to be born. Moses was not looking for God. He was working. That's important. The bush did not appear in a mystical moment. It appeared on an ordinary day, on a normal walk, in a repeated routine. Because God doesn't always interrupt with noise. Sometimes he reveals himself in the everyday, Moses had learned to live on autopilot, walk, tend, return. And that's precisely where many get lost emotionally. When life enters repetition, the mind begins to disconnect from purpose. Psychologically, meaningless routine generates apathy. Spiritually, routine without direction generates dryness. But God transformed routine into revelation. The bush burned, but it was not consumed. That was not just a visual miracle. It was an internal lesson. There are fires that do not destroy. There are processes that do not burn you, they awaken you. Moses stopped, and that was the first real step of obedience. Before going to Egypt, before speaking with Pharaoh, before freeing anyone, he stopped, because he who does not learn to stop does not know how to listen. God did not call Moses by his name through force. He called him through attention. Moses, Moses. The call becomes clear when the heart is available. But even in the face of the supernatural, Moses doubted. He did not doubt God, he doubted himself. Who am I? I cannot speak. I'm not enough. Here a deep wound appears, the low perception of identity. Many believe that there is a lack of faith, when in reality there is a lack of internal clarity. Moses did not see himself as God saw him, and that generates resistance. God did not argue with his emotions. He did not invalidate his fear. He did not humiliate him, he simply reaffirmed direction. I will be with you. He did not give him immediate emotional security. He gave him constant presence. Because trust is not born before the journey. It is born during the journey. God does not expect you to feel ready. He expects you to be willing. The bush burned, but the real fire was happening within. When a person understands that they do not walk alone, obedience stops being heavy and becomes possible. The problem is not feeling fear. The problem is staying paralyzed by it. And Moses, for the first time, did not flee. Moses listened to God. He saw the bush. He understood the call, and yet he resisted. This is more human than it seems. Because understanding is not the same as sustaining. Listening is not the same as continuous obedience. Moses didn't say no to God. He said, I am not capable. And that phrase carries one of the greatest traps of the human mind, confusing humility with fear. I don't know how to speak. I don't have the words. Send someone else. It wasn't a lack of faith. It was a fragmented identity. Psychologically, when someone has spent a lot of time in silence, they learn not to take up space, not to raise their voice, not to believe they can influence. The desert had shaped his character, but it had also left its marks. And God did not ignore that. God did not respond with pressure. He responded with structure. He gave him help. He gave him accompaniment. He gave him clear steps. Because God does not demand perfection, he demands availability. Here is a profound truth. God's direction does not eliminate human fragility. It sustains it. Moses wanted guarantees. God offered process. Moses wanted to feel ready. God gave him instructions. Because transformation does not happen in a single day. It happens in daily obedience. Many today want a great spiritual change, but they don't want small daily commitments. They want total clarity without walking, but God works differently. He does not give everything at once because he knows that humans get overwhelmed. They become paralyzed, they hide. That's why God guides in stages, in steps, through repeated decisions. Daily direction protects the mind. It prevents emotional exhaustion. It sustains faith when emotion subsides. Moses did not leave the desert as a confident orator. He left as an obedient man, and that was enough. Because when the direction is clear, confidence is built along the way. You don't need to feel strong today. You need to know where to take the next step. And when that step is clear, God takes care of the rest. Moses agreed to go, but he didn't feel safe. And that changes a very common belief, the idea that confidence comes first and then action. In the story of Moses, it happens the other way around. Action precedes security. The step comes before certainty. Obedience is born before calm. Moses walked with doubts. He spoke with fear. He moved forward with fragility, but he moved forward. Psychologically, this is key. The mind does not eliminate fear by staying still. Fear is reduced when the body moves in the right direction. Paralysis reinforces insecurity. Guided action weakens it. God did not promise Moses that he would not be afraid. He promised him that he would not be alone. And that is very different, because loneliness amplifies fear, but presence makes it manageable. Moses returned to Egypt not as a confident man, but as a sustained man. Every step was an internal confrontation. Every word demanded courage. Every encounter tested his faith. But something began to change. Not outside, inside. Identity begins to align when action and direction coincide. Many wait to feel peace before moving forward. But true peace often appears after obeying. The error is not to feel fear. The error is to use fear as a decision criterion. God did not guide Moses by emotions. He guided him by purpose. And when the purpose is clear, emotion stops commanding. That doesn't mean everything became easy. It means everything started to make sense. Walking without absolute security is part of the spiritual process. Because if you saw everything clearly, you wouldn't need faith. Faith does not eliminate uncertainty. It crosses through it. Moses began to experience something new. He did not control the path, but he no longer walked lost. And that is a silent transformation, but powerful. When you know where you are going, even if your heart trembles, your steps remain firm. Obeying God does not eliminate opposition, it reveals it. When Moses began to speak, things did not immediately get better. In fact, they seemed to get worse. Pharaoh resisted, the people doubted, the pressure increased. And here arises one of the greatest emotional crises of the calling, when you do the right thing and the result doesn't appear quickly. Psychologically, this is the point where many give up, because humans associate obedience with immediate reward. And when that doesn't happen, the mind interprets it as an error. Moses obeyed and was still questioned. Why did you bring us here? Now we are worse off. That moment is devastating for identity, because it touches a deep wound, the fear of having misunderstood God. Moses did not doubt God's power, he doubted himself again. And here is an important spiritual truth. Initial obedience is often tested by the resistance of the environment. Not because God fails, but because real transformation always makes old systems uncomfortable. Pharaoh not only represented a king, he represented a mindset of control, of oppression, of fear of change. And every time Moses spoke, that system reacted. This also happens today. When a person starts to walk with purpose, the environment becomes unsettled. Some don't understand, others question, others try to discourage. And if the person is not internally firm, they retreat. That's why daily guidance is so important. It's not just to advance, it's to sustain oneself when pressure comes. Moses learned something essential. To obey is not to control results. It is to remain faithful to the step received. God did not ask Moses to convince Pharaoh. He asked him to speak. The result was not in his hands. Obedience was. When a person understands that, the emotional burden decreases. They no longer live to please. They no longer live to prove anything. They live to obey with clarity. And little by little, even if everything doesn't change immediately, identity is strengthened. Because whoever walks with purpose does not need constant approval. Resistance is not a sign of failure. Many times it is a sign of progress. And Moses, even tired, even questioned, did not turn back. There came a moment when Moses stopped reacting and started enduring. He no longer argued as much. He no longer explained everything. He no longer defended himself against every question. He simply remained. That doesn't mean he didn't feel weary. It means he no longer allowed weariness to decide for him. Here, a profound transformation occurs. Initially, Moses obeyed with fear. Later, he obeyed with effort. Now he obeyed with conviction. Psychologically, this is the point where identity solidifies. When a person stops asking themselves at every step if they are doing the right thing and begins to walk from a firmer internal place. Mature faith doesn't shout. It doesn't prove itself all the time. It doesn't need applause. Mature faith endures. Moses had already understood something essential. It was not he who was sustaining the mission. It was God who was sustaining him. That's why he could move forward without breaking when things didn't go as expected. The sea had not yet parted. The people still complained. Pharaoh still resisted. But Moses was no longer the same man from the desert. Before, fear paralyzed him. Now fear existed, but it did not govern. Conviction does not eliminate uncertainty. It takes away its power. God had not completely changed the scenario. He had changed Moses from within. And when the inside is ordered, the outside begins to respond. Many people confuse faith with enthusiasm. But enthusiasm depends on mood. Conviction depends on truth. And truth, when sustained day after day, forms a stable emotional base. Moses no longer needed constant signs. He needed faithfulness. Because whoever walks with clear direction is not moved by impulse nor stopped by pressure. Faith, when it matures, becomes tranquil, not because everything is resolved, but because the heart already knows in whom it trusts. And that kind of faith prepares the ground for the impossible. The sea did not open first. Moses had to stand before it, with the people behind him, with the enemy approaching, with the noise of fear all around. That moment reveals something definitive. Faith does not eliminate pressure. It cuts through it with direction. Moses did not raise the staff out of emotion. He raised it out of obedience. He did not shout. He did not flee. He did not improvise. He stood firm. And only after that step the path appeared. This breaks a very common human expectation, to wait for God to open the sea before walking. But God usually does the opposite. First, he asks for positioning. Then he reveals the step. Psychologically, this is maturity. The person no longer depends on external signs to validate their decisions. They walk from internal conviction. Spiritually, this is real trust. Not trust in the outcome, but in the presence. The sea did not open because Moses was strong. It opened because Moses was aligned. Clear direction, constant obedience. God's presence, that is the pattern. Many today wait for an open sea to believe, to move forward, to change their lives. But the path is revealed to those who have already decided to walk. Moses did not know what the future would hold. He knew with whom he was walking, and that was enough. When a person stops seeking total certainty and begins to live with daily direction, something changes profoundly. Anxiety decreases, faith stabilizes. The mind organizes itself, not because everything is resolved, but because the heart is no longer lost. The story of Moses is not just about liberation, it is about constancy, about obeying even when there seems to be no way out, about walking with clarity amidst uncertainty. If this story resonated with you, perhaps you are not at the end. Perhaps you are just about to raise the staff. And if today you feel faith, but also confusion, remember this: God does not guide through impulses. He guides through daily steps. Freedom does not begin when the sea opens. It begins when direction is defined. If you want to walk with clarity, practical faith, and daily purpose, read the comments. And if you are ready to stop wandering in the desert, comment direction. Because when the direction is clear, the path always appears.